Welcome back to another episode of Broke Up, Not Broken. I'm your host, Jamie Lima, and founder of Allegiant Divorce Solutions, where we help people prepare for, navigate, and recover financially from divorce. This podcast is your one-stop shop for mastering your life and your finances throughout the entire divorce process. In today's episode, we have the pleasure of hosting Rhonda Parker Taylor, an inspiring author known for her suspense thriller Crossroads. Rhonda combines deep psychological insights with riveting narratives, capturing the complexities of human emotions and conflicts. Today, we'll delve into how her storytelling intersects with real-life challenges, including financial dilemmas and personal growth, with a focus on emotional intelligence and resiliency. So grab a cup of coffee or your beverage of choice, buckle up, and let's once again get you financially and personally empowered. Rhonda, it's so great to have you here with us today.
I am so glad to be here too. This is a different topic for people to discuss, and I love it. I love the fact that we're going to tell authentic stories about what the heck we did when we went through our divorces, the mistakes, the successes, and how others might be able to prevent those pitfalls that we did, because boy, you're an emotional mess. At least I was during my divorce. How about you?
Absolutely. And we kind of talked a little bit more about this in the pre-show conversation we had here, but I agree. I mean, I think even as a financial professional, at the time I was going through my divorce, I had been doing this work for almost 13 years at that point, and I still stepped in some landmines along the way. So I know those people out there that don't have the financial expertise and even the emotional expertise like you do, and to be able to handle things, it can get really challenging. So, tell me more about your divorce. What's the story here?
Well, mine was a young love and so we got married in I was 21, I think he was 20. And we built a solid life together. Both of us professionally. We started a business together. He was a graphic designer, so his was in the marketing area. And I worked in corporate America and was still going to school. I got my MBA and my doctorate. So you would think, oh, you would never make any real bad financial decisions. And then we got to a place we'd been married 15 years, and we just grew apart. And there was no big drama. The main drama was at the time that we ended, my mother had breast cancer and was fighting for her life. And he was still running primarily the business by himself. And I had stepped away from my role of working at another job, just helped him with the business that we had built together. And boy, I was so emotional, and you would think that I would be able to pull it all together, but I couldn't. When we decided to split, I just left. I didn't fight for anything. We had a house together. We had a business together. And I thought, well, I'll go back at some point with my divorce attorney and everything and address this. And we had a meeting one day. He had brought the accountant to, basically say the business isn't really worth a lot. And, you could probably only get about $6,000. And I just finally said, this is a big mistake. So women and men out there, think about this. I don't have the energy to fight. I don't have energy to fight for the relationship. I don't have energy to fight for money. And I flat out said that. So I left with the agreement that the house would be his, the business that we grew together. He paid me $6,000 to sign off my part of it, and I walked away.
Oh.
And I was young when you think about it. 15 years. I was only 35, but I knew better. I just didn't have the tenacity to fight. I was emotionally drained. My mom had just had her surgery, and eventually she lost the fight to breast cancer. And I just couldn't do it. It wasn't in my makeup to fight over money. And I look back and think, and I tell women all the time, don't be stupid. Yes, you could try to destroy the person. I always tell people, be like Grace Kelly, the most elegant person in the world. Leave with grace, but don't be a fool.
That's huge. That's huge advice. I mean, and it's not, I don't know if it's about like who's going to like trying to win all the time, right? Because in divorce, nobody wins. It's a lose-lose proposition, right? But if you have to try to walk away, like you said, with obviously with your head held high, but knowing that you've lost less.
Right. Right. And the thing that I look at is, you build financial independency, as a couple typically. And then all of a sudden you forget that you have to build financial independence for yourself, because now you're on a whole different journey. So for me, I kind of looked at it as I could rebuild. But how, you never know what that corner around the next bend's going to be like. Shortly after, our adopted son was shot and killed. Oh. At a workplace violence. And I made a mistake and I bought a VA house this was during the financial crisis, and they didn't do the paperwork correctly. So all of a sudden the house that had been in foreclosure that I bought was still in foreclosure. And because nobody wanted to work with me because the power was in the mortgage companies, and I lost the house that I had purchased. So I had a series of bad decisions, thinking I was making the right decisions and forgetting that I was the one that was supposed to be in charge of my financial independence. And that was a big lesson for me to learn. And so I tell people all the time, when we talked about doing the podcast, they're like, why would you want to talk about your divorce? It's been years. Because everybody I go talk to always is going through similar things.
So how did you build that resilience within yourself? I mean, is that just like part of your nature, or did you have to like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just carry on? I mean, you lost your mother, you lost your marriage, you lost your home, you lost your son. I mean, like all these things happen in what sounds like a short period of time. Most people would just want to crawl under a rock and go away, but like you did the complete opposite.
Well, and it would have been very easy to just not get out of bed ever again. And yes, I would say probably the storytelling as I was growing up, being a Midwestern girl, you get back up on the horse when you fall off is part of it. But I think also it was the childlike mindset that I chose to take. And what I realized is every time there was some kind of life hit tragedy, my mind kept on going back to all those fairy tales and Frosty the Snowman and all the things that people put in front of us that I think today's kids don't get. But Frosty the Snowman, what was the last thing as he was melting? Put one foot in front of the other. and so I would start doing these jingles in my head to keep me moving. And then, as I have gone through different aspects and thinking about that, I've realized that there's a more mature way of looking at things, and that is the journey is shorter with the first step. Mm. So when you're looking at something daunting, it's that first step that you actually have to go through. And I think it was on your podcast information. You just, look at it as, yes, you fake it till you make it. It's, divorce is a hard thing. And sometimes you just don't feel like approaching the adversity that goes with it. But sometimes you need to. And I should have hired someone else to do it.
So I have a comment, and then I have a follow-up question about your situation. Number one, I hope you fired this attorney for letting you walk away from this.
I didn't. I just went ahead and went through the divorce. I just went through the divorce. I just signed it and went on, and didn't look back until later in life. And I think that's where people going through a divorce now should really look at, talking to someone that's an expert like you. You're
exactly, and I don't mean to talk over you, but like, it just like, I'm so fired up about this, and like, it's making my blood boil thinking about it, because like you were in such a vulnerable position And it has nothing to do with sex, right? Like male, female, like homemaker, no homemaker. Like, I was in a position, like it's a very stressful experience. I understand. And even in my own divorce, I was like, I just want this thing over with, because every 5 minutes I felt like I was writing a check to the attorney, and I just wanted this thing over with. But at the same time, like, your attorney's job, so those of you listening to this, your attorney's job, number one, is to be a fiduciary for you and help you navigate the legal aspects of the divorce and do what is in your best interest at all times. Rhonda's case is not that. And number two, they should not be giving you financial advice, right? They are not trained financial experts. They don't spend, I spend 100 hours a year in continuing education courses for the work that we do, both on the financial planning side and the divorce financial planning. So your attorney is not going to be able to figure this stuff out. And it's like, shame on that person. Hopefully they're retired at this stage, because this was many years ago, but they should have been out of the business then, because that is not the way to handle this. It's just so sad to see. And we just had a case, Rhonda, where this happened. We're recording this in November of 2024. And this just happened recently. So by the time this airs, it's going to be a few months old, but we have a case right now where similar to you, where couple owns this business. It's a grading company that they do some work, and they degrade land and lots for homes and things like that. And every year the revenue of the business has exponentially increased. However, their accountant came in and said, well, this thing's really only generating $30,000 a year in revenue, and that's what's been put on the tax return. We brought in a business valuations expert and somebody who could do a little bit, because we do some business valuation work, and I'm working on that certification myself as well. But this business valuation person came in and just looked at this and was like, wait, what the hell is going on here? That business at the end of the day was worth $1.05 million. So instead of walking away with nothing, she's going to walk away with $500,000 in addition to all the other stuff that she's going to be able to walk away with from the marriage. It's bananas.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time, really think. That's why you really have to consider where you are. And sometimes it's not, like, let's say the house. A lot of people fight over the house. Sometimes it's not best for you to have the house. Find another house. Make them buy out that house, because if there's a fight over the house, they're trying to replace what happened in the life that they had in the house. And that's never going to be replaced. It's just going to be a haunting memory. Let them have it. Let them have the haunting memories. Get yourself something fresh and new if you can. Now, in some cases, people can't. But if you have that ability to do that, don't fight for the house. Let them buy you out, something, because, you have to look at your mental stability too. And I think that looking back, that's what I was looking at. I was too overwhelmed. I knew I was independent enough to redo it again. And I just didn't want the fight. But I should have fought. Some. I should have stood my ground. Some. I should have looked for some of that independence. But, I didn't want to go through the, legal aspects of being newly divorced.
Yeah. So, and there's layers of this in the book and their social media content and all the work that you do. One of the common threads of everything you talk about is the emotional intelligence.
Right.
And that's exactly what you're speaking to is having the emotional intelligence to make more pragmatic, practical decisions versus letting the emotions involve. Am I right?
That's correct. And the interesting thing, part of that is I didn't actually get into the emotional intelligence piece of things until after the divorce. I had started my doctorate, and I had a professor one time that said, you're smarter than you sound. And I was like, what the heck does that mean? It was like the last day of class, and you're leaving, and I'm like, and it was an econ class, and it's like, where in the heck did this come from? And then as I started thinking about what he said and talking to others, I realized, okay, I'm from a small town in the Midwest. I don't sound scholarly in any way. And then I started reading Daniel Goleman's books. And it's about emotional intelligence, that anybody out there that wants to learn that it doesn't matter what your IQ is. It matters what your EQ is. EQ makes you more successful and makes you better at making decisions and working in groups than the IQ. IQ can never change. It's your left brain functions, it's your logic, your math, your science skills, but EQ does. And you're exactly right. It helps you make better decisions. And then I realized, wait a minute, I don't have to be the brightest bulb in the bunch to be successful and continue to thrive and make good decisions. I just have to slow down and pay attention to what my own emotions are and the emotions of others, and have some self-regard and self-awareness of those emotions to make better decisions.
As you were walking us through that, the one, I think I talked about this in a podcast or two back. So if you're listening and you haven't heard, subscribe so you can get all of our updated content and go back to some of the previous shows that we've done. But we were talking about this aspect of resiliency and emotional intelligence and just handling the emotions in divorce. And it kind of ties into what you're saying. There's an amazing TED Talk that was done years ago. The gentleman's name's Simon Sinek. Have you heard of Simon Sinek?
I haven't heard of him. No.
Simon Sinek, Sinek. And the TED Talk he gave was on the power of why. It's called The Power of Why. And in an old life, I used to actually coach financial advisors at a big name company. And I did that work for a couple of years. And what we found in the conversations with advisors is they were always leading with the IQ side of things. Like, Rhonda, you have a problem. Let me help you figure out how to fix it.
Right. You can't do that.
Exactly. So what we used to train them to do is like, let's stop focusing on here and start thinking with the heart and asking the questions. And really simply, it's a question of why. Why is that important to you? Why is that a challenge? Why is this? Why is that? So you can really get to the root cause of things. And I think and this is kind of a long-winded way of me getting back to what your comment, but everything you're talking about ties into that, because if you're going through a divorce and you're trying to figure all this stuff out and you're trying to think through it with the practical sides, you have to behave practically, because you can't just go wild, wild west, because the next thing you know, all your emails, telephone calls, text messages and everything else telling your ex-husband or ex-spouse that he's a jerk or she's a narcissist or whatever is going to be all over the courtroom projector screens for all the whole world to see. You don't want to go that crazy, but you got to be pragmatic and practical, but you also have to understand, like, why is this happening to me? Why am I feeling the way that I am? Why am I kind of in this rut, and how do I get myself out of it? Right? Like, any thoughts on that?
I think that a lot of the why is you haven't scanned the whole intentions of what happened in that relationship. You don't look at the internal, you don't look at the external, and then you've never, when it comes to that decision, you haven't learned to even self-regulate yourself. Self-regulation is when you manage your emotions, your impulses, and your resources. So in my case, my impulse was to run, not face it, not face that there was a failure. It wasn't about get back, or it wasn't, I just didn't have the energy to continue. And in those disruptive impulses, in my case, of fear, run, don't challenge, came from a internal narrative that, one, that I would fight through it, but myself, but two, that maybe I wasn't worth what to fight. I wasn't worth that context. I had a negative narrative of, the failure meant that, I just needed to not fight because a woman has less value. And so, because I came from a patriarchal system, I came from the patriarchal father, and, I actually saw my mom model something similar. Now, she fought a little bit more, but she walked away. And, so I think that those negative narratives have a lot to do with it. You have to value yourself and your future to be able to fight for it.
There's that, and that just brings me to my next question about like being self-aware of you doing those like having those negative repeating thoughts and trying so how do you, are there any practical tips you can share in that regard? Because I think one of the things that we all face is really trying to really being self-aware, right? We just kind of go about our day. We act the way we act, we talk the way we talk, but really truly being self-aware as you're going through this experience, and not just divorce, other challenging experiences that you face is probably incredibly important, right?
I would say first you have to have a vision for yourself. As soon as you have any major change, sit down. Say, okay, life is going to be different, and create that vision. When you create a vision, and I'll call it the miracle question because psychologists use it all the time. If you were to wake up tomorrow and you have the life that you always dreamed of, with the new set of circumstances that you've been given, what does that life look like? Pick the house out, pick the yard, the vacations, the whatever it may be. And then once you've defined it, look where you're at and break it down. Say, okay, how am I going to get there? Because if you can have a vision and a landmark, and say, okay, I like Chinese food. He never liked Chinese food, and so then you turn around and say, okay, I'm going to eat Chinese food tonight, whatever it might be. But, one of the first things I did is I went to Belgium. Did a vacation by myself. I'd always wanted to do Europe. I wanted to go to Paris, and Paris seemed too big at the time for me. So I picked Belgium because I could get on a train and go to Paris. I never left. I never left Belgium. Every day I found something that seemed like it was meant for me. I get on the train, got off in Bruges. Then it started raining and I jumped underneath a awning of one of the churches, and it said, "Pray over the blood of Jesus Christ." Now, who wouldn't want to pray over I don't care what religion you are. You're going to say, I think I need that. I just went through a divorce. So I went running in. Sure enough, it was the trout. And, and I put my hands, and there's no fee to actually pray over what's considered, what they've said for years and centuries, that is, the raps of Jesus Christ. And so then the next day I'm getting ready to get on a train, and I lost my way, and I met two brothers, and they're like, well, why don't you go to the Diamond District with us today? And they actually lived there, and they said, we're getting ready to go meet one of our friends and colleagues, and I got to see how they did the diamonds and how they, smithed the gold. And it's like, so every day something was provided for me. So what people don't realize is even in the worst of situations, you can be provided a little nugget that takes you further into your journey to soften what you thought your life was going to be and create a new vision. So during that week, I was able to create a new vision for myself. And, yes, there was other things that went on after that, but I would say creating that vision is a very big part, and be willing to explore yourself, because sometimes we become two in a relationship. We start out as two in a relationship. You end up being one, and the decisions are all based on that new oneness. Now you have your own oneness, and so you have to redefine who you are.
That's an incredible story. We could do a whole podcast on your trip to Belgium.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. It's incredible. What about, so you've obviously thrived post divorce, in your the second phase of your life, your new life, I'm not sure I picked up on how long ago the divorce was, but
2002, well, this is when we separated.
Okay. So it's been quite some time. So, for those people that are out there that are in the throes of it, it doesn't seem like, they can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. What do you have to say for them based on your experience?
I would say start dreaming and get the resources that you need, if it's ADS to help you, if it's your attorney, if it's your family, find the experts to give you solid advice that's not emotionally charged in the situation so that you make good decisions and start dreaming. Start pulling things out of that hat like you're a new magician, because when you start pulling a rabbit this time and a quick change next time, and you find out that there's so much more to live for. We're not defined by the relationship we're in. We're defined by who we are internally and externally, but more internally than externally, and create that vision, because everybody's beautifully and wonderfully made. Even that, we could say the big A that you're married to or that you're divorced. Everybody is, because it's just a situation. It just didn't work. And don't look at it as a failure. I think that's a big part of it, because you know what? If you were married 10 years, 2 years, 3 years, most people make it 6 months. So, hey, you did a great job. Give yourself a pat on the back and show what you learned and go from there.
Yeah, that's an amazing message. This is the what I would always call the carte blanche segment of our conversation here today. Is there anything, any questions I didn't ask that I should have, or anything that's on top of your mind that you want to share with our audience that we didn't cover today?
I think the one thing that I would say is just embrace the change. Mm-hmm. Embrace the change and do it logically without all the external emotions. Think of the most eloquent person and how they would handle it, but be wise and do it well.
Got it. And anything you have to say about your book tour? Your book tour coming. Then we talked about a workbook that you have coming out. Like, there's all kinds of amazing resources. Yeah. How can people get a hold of you to get a copy?
Fiction novel. It's about crossroads, which is the main character is Paris Pennington. She is a business analyst that gets called to jury duty, and she's a workaholic, and everything falls apart because she gets called to jury duty. It is fiction, but it's based out of Indianapolis, so they're real sites. If you've never been to Indianapolis, it's going to be the City County Building, the Circle, Holiday Park, and the dead bodies dropped behind Lafayette Square Mall on the railroad tracks. But it's about a person that's going through this journey of self-discovery because she's put too much into one area, which is work. And because she's bought into that narrative that work is your identity. So hopefully people that read that book, it's endorsed by Meryl Hemingway, the Academy-winning actress and granddaughter of Ernest Hemingway. And then it takes there's a case study for every one of the characters, because all of them are out of balance. And then I have a workbook coming out after Christmas that will allow us to redefine ourselves and take us through that journey. And once we get to that journey and define our vision, then you're able to implement it. It's real easy. It has exercises in it. It has them as case studies, and how, you could end up even being accessory to crime if you don't get your life balance together, because you might get in the car at the wrong time with the wrong friend, and you haven't taken your due diligence to do it wisely. And that's what happened to Billy Knuckles. He got in the car and out of ego that, yes, he could party it up with the girls, and his friend killed them. Oh. And so now he has to decide whether he's going to turn state on them or be loyal and take the charge. So we all have crossroads in our lives, and divorce is one of them. And that's one of the great things about, being able to talk in different podcasts about different ways of things. And I love hearing from people. I'd love to hear people's stories of their divorces, or maybe they're going through one, and how we and ADS can help. Because guess what? It takes a village to get through these things. It's not something that you can do by yourself. I chose to try to do it by myself, and I didn't make wise decisions. And with all my education, you would have thought I would. So it's not about smarts. It's about controlling those emotions and actually looking for the solution and having self-regard, self-awareness, and self-regulation, because I should never have walked away.
Oh, that's like a mic drop moment right there. Like we should let everybody replay that and do it over again, because that was pretty powerful. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of your compelling insights into the art of emotional intelligence, resiliency, which is a powerful word, and I think something that you've defined in your own life. It's pretty incredible, remarkable story. So thank you so much for sharing. Emotional intelligence and resiliency, they're two incredibly important things and really truly impact us as we're going through life's challenges. So I'm very appreciative that you're here for us today. For those of you that are listening, don't worry, we're going to share all of the content and contact information for Rhonda. You can be able to go to our show notes to look at her website, to get a copy of that book, get a copy of the workbook, because by the time this podcast comes out, it's going to be after Christmas. So you can get a copy of yours. I'm sure it'll be available at that point. Those listeners that are out there that are intrigued by Rhonda's work, don't hesitate to find her books at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and follow her on social media for all the updates on all of her latest projects. You've got a lot of them going on, it seems like.
Yeah. They can go to my website, and that will probably be those RhondaParkerTaylor.com. It has an update of all the events, and love to hear from everybody. And I really, really appreciate being on your podcast today. It's been a blessing.
Yeah, it's been a blessing for us too. And remember, those of you that are listening, if you're navigating your own challenges, Allegiant Divorce Solutions is here to offer guidance and support on all the financial aspects of your divorce. So visit AllegiantDS.com for more resources, or to book a complimentary consultation with us about your specific situation. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more inspiring conversations like this one. And until next time.